Hotep, it's your brother Beniti. I'm on Ray, aka Brother Michael. Um, Back this week to kind of continuation on the discussion that we talked about last week, uh, applying the rituals, the symbolism, and actually putting the magic into practice. Um, Dispelling a lot of the myths, unfortunately, that religion has propelled for many years now. We kind of left off there last week how a lot of those mythological stories, when you're reading the creation stories in the so-called holy books, and you're reading the stories of the characters in these books, and I say characters because when you're reading your modern day Bible and Quran, you're reading characters that were actually in scriptures and cultures that predated thousands of years prior to the Bible. And most of these Bible writers adjusted the names of these characters according to their culture, their religion, and their language. But unfortunately, in this day and time, a lot of those fictitious, mythological, religious stories have been taken literal, very to the point when I say literal, word for word, verbatim, literal. So we've been talking about what magic is, how it applies to working the rituals and the symbolism, and kind of what it's really all about. Tonight, actually, just to throw this out there, connecting with working with spiritual magic. Tonight, at the recording of this video, January 30th, 2016, 10:16 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tonight is a good night because the moon is in a waning phase. At this point of the evening, it's in the influence of Mars, and this is a great time because the Mars energy is great for banishing or removing any negative energy, spiritually and mentally, emotionally and psychically. It's also a good time to work candle magic and petition specific situations that might be causing you difficulty, to summons the presence of the archetype energy of the deities in order to assist you in difficult situations. But a great time to do banishing work and protection work, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So tonight is a good night, going into tomorrow night, to burn red candles. Red is a strong color that's used for those purposes, and it has a strong Mars influence. The Mars energy is very powerful when it comes to banishing. So I'm constantly, along with that, on my altar, in addition to burning the standard altar candle, I constantly have a black candle burning because you should always have your altar being cleaned, and black absorbs all that negative energy. It's one of the most powerful candle colors one can burn in purifying one's altar. So I always have a black candle burning there. Once you dispel the myth on what the black candles represent, because most people are spooked out in reference to the color black. And just to go over that real quick before we continue on with our discussion, I'm going to read something. And one thing, I've recommended this in the past, and if you haven't heard me in the past, is a great book to study, to learn how to practice correct candle magic, which is The Magic Candle by Charmaine Day. Very easy book to follow, very simple to read, not a long book. It's about 60 pages, breaks down all the colors, the planetary influences, tells you how to dress your candles, how to clean them, how to prepare them, and things of that nature. Breaks down the different types of candles one would use, how to use them, etc. And has a ritual one can use. You don't have to use it word verbatim, but it gives you a general idea how a ritual can be done, and obviously you can create your own rituals because that's what this is about, creating your own spiritual path. Um, Also gives you some suggestions on how to set your altar up, things of that nature. Very, very good book. Easy read. And this is a book I recommend to most of the people I come across, students or people that I'm conversating with. And I always recommend this as a book for somebody that really wants to start out on the road to practicing candle magic. Also, Raymond Buckland's book, Practical Candle Burning Rituals, is another good book. So I always recommend you start there, and it'll break down the different type of candles, the purposes that they serve: wax candles, seven knob candles, skull candles, man and woman candles, the different 7-day glass candles. It gets into every aspect that one would need to know what candle magic is, how it works, and how one is able to practice it. So on that note, though, let me say this to make sure we're crystal clear. Do not approach this spiritual practice in a religious sense, because it has nothing on any shape, form, or level to do with religion. You are still the driving force and the energy, because you're tapping into the inner depths of your subconscious mind, and as I like to call it, the dark chaotic energy of Set. That's limitless, undefinable, no boundaries. You're tapping into the inner depths of the subconscious mind to tap into some of that cosmic consciousness to spark your spiritual workings. So again, you're the one doing this, and I'm saying that as I don't want nobody to go into the pretense of working any of these rituals under the assumption that you're going outside of the divine within, because you're not. People create the illusion in some of these rituals that they're contacting an external force. You are still contacting the archetype energies that dwell within the subconscious mind under the 7 Hermetic principles. All is mental, mental is all. So basically what you're doing is you are tapping into the psyche of the mind and drawing that energy and that presence out. That's how correct magic works, manipulation of the subconscious mind, and tapping into those energies or frequencies. So that's key to understand it. So I don't want anybody in any magical working approaching it in a sense that you are contacting external forces. And you'll find out in all magical workings, even in, for an example, for those that are familiar with, even if you go into some of Aleister Crowley's teachings, and I'd recommend that people get familiar with that, because magical practitioners are spooked out also on Crowley's teachings, because they don't understand it, and they just get into a lot of the personal stuff that Crowley did, and they get caught up in the negative stuff, and you take from it from what you can get. But to remove that spookism, I recommend you read that, and I recommend you read anything you can get your hands on. But anyway, in the Book of the Law, one of Crowley's workings, there's a saying, and like I'm saying, when a true God or a deity reads anything, they can take out of it what applies to them and just leave what doesn't. And I'm an individual that can read anybody's works, and if it just some things that just don't apply to me, I just leave it as is. I mean, I can read any level of information, and the deity in you will manifest to cipher out of that information what applies. But in the Book of the Law, states, you'll read this, you'll hear this even in the Gnostic Mass that Crowley came up with. There's a saying in that Mass: there is no part of me that is not part of the gods. And I won't say that again, so people can meditate on that and understand it. That's a good meditation to go to your sacred space and meditate on. There's no part of me that is not part of the gods. So when you have that mindset, when you're working spiritual magic, you will understand you're still tapping into the divine within. All right, so back to kind of what we were talking about. I wanted to read this quick excerpt from Charmaine Day's The Magic Candle on what the color black represents, to remove again some of that negative spookism, because when people think of black magic, unfortunately, like I've said in the past, they think of people wearing all black with these big pentagrams on and all this satanic worship, and that has nothing to do with true black magic, especially when you go back to the ancient Egyptians and Africans, because they are the original practitioners of real black magic. We're not talking about how later on a lot of these symbols dealing with the occult came affiliated with, what they call today modern day Satanism. And basically, as I said before, Satanism was just a counter reaction to what Christianity was. Because, for an example, when you read Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, and when you really understand the Black Mass, it's basically was in opposition to everything that Christianity stood for. And it focused specifically on Christianity and religion. And that's kind of where it went wrong. You'll find out when you study that it kind of created a fictitious character that the Christian Bible created called God. They created their fictitious character called the devil, and that same concept applies, that those are just varying degrees of vibration and energy. There's no such thing as God or devil, good or bad. They're varying degrees of vibration that is interpreted by the one perceiving those varying degrees of vibration. Because like I've said, depending on how one is perceiving the energy, I might perceive something to me that is good, and the next individual might perceive that as bad to them based on their personal perception. So it's important to understand that, and it's important to break the myths on what occult is, spiritual magic, or black magic is, because again, most people are completely spooked the fuck out about it, confused, and don't really understand what it deals with. When you do grasp the full understanding, it's a beautiful thing. Anyway, real quick, black. This is the most controversial of all. We will try to represent both aspects of the controversy, and you must decide for yourself. There are those that feel that black is evil. This is in reference to the color black, and disparage the thought of ever burning any kind of black candle in the fear that it releases all sorts of bad or dangerous influences. If you have been previously conditioned to this type of belief, it is probably best that you follow your own intuition about it, because it is your subconscious mind with which you are dealing in your selection. Here we go again with the subconscious mind. You, and as I've said before, you are your thoughts. You become your thoughts. So if you think black candles are negative and evil, and you feel something bad about it, follow your intuition, because this is your subconscious mind creating that. And if you think about it and put so much energy to it, then that's going to become a reality. So again, it's the subconscious mind at work here. Okay? Very important to understand. For those with a more open attitude who have not been so conditioned, there is a completely different and more scientific side of the story. Black is the absence or void of any and all color, and therefore it does not radiate or emit any vibration of its own at all. As a matter of fact, being void, it is of female negative polarity, absorbing rather than emitting any energy. And that's why I said a few minutes ago, I constantly keep a black candle burning on my altar so it can absorb and cleanse all the negative energy that deals with my persona, my spiritual energy, and is able to clarify and clear up the spiritual vibrations when I'm doing work. So it's a really powerful color, especially when dealing with candle magic, if you really know how to work with it. All right. Then as it burns, it releases only that which has been placed into it or upon it. So when you also use it, and I'll also use it in ritualistic work, so it can release any energy that you yourself stamp into it, or put into it, which is important. And you'll find when working a lot of ritualistic magic, black candles are used frequently for a lot of ritualistic purposes for that reason. It releases only that which has been placed into it or upon it, so how you have charged it determines whether it is good or so-called bad. Always be certain to prepare the candle carefully prior to burning it, observing the ritual of cleansing and exorcism to thoroughly remove any impressions previously placed on it through manufacture and handling at the store, as far as cleaning it and preparing it. And then the last part goes on to say, black represents the still of the night, inertia, the deep cold and tranquil waters, the deepest recesses of the unconscious mind. A burning black candle symbolizes light coming out of the darkness. And as it says in your Bible, the book of John, chapter 1, light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. That has nothing to do with Jesus. Most people that are religious and Christian will claim that is a term or a metaphor that has a lot of Masonic connotation to it. If you've been initiated in a Masonic lodge, you know what the light shining in the darkness and the darkness comprehended and not really represents. And what that really represents, and on a surface level, on a Masonic level, as you know, in your 3 degrees in what they call the Blue House, which would be the Entered Apprentice degree, the Fellowcraft degree, the Master Mason degree, you are blindfolded in darkness as you go through these rituals. And on the first ritual, the Entered Apprentice degree, at the very end of the degree, when your blindfold or your hoodwink is removed, you're brought into the light. But that real light that shines in the darkness, because that physical light that you're exposed to is blinding. That physical light is the light that causes chaos and confusion. And this is why when you're studying all your monotheistic religions, what are they always telling you? Come into the light. Come into the light. The light of the world. Everything is light, light, light. But not telling you that that light is blinding and chaos. That other light that it's talking about, and even when you get into your Bible, remember you had symbolically, when you break down the secret hidden meaning or the occult meaning of it, you had the creation of 2 lights in your book of Genesis. The lesser light and the greater light. People think that's talking literally again, because the creation stories were a myth that was symbolic, but the greater light and the lesser light is that physical blinding light. The greater light is that light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. That greater light is, for an example, when one is going through rituals per se, as in a Masonic lodge or in a any other sacred fraternity or sacred order or secret society that enacts rituals with being blindfolded. When you're in that state of darkness or blindfolded, the light that shineth in the darkness is the intellect, because when one is going through those rituals and degrees and one is blindfolded, they're relying on another seeing eye that brings them light, which we would call the pineal gland, the third eye, the brow chakra, the many different terms for it. You're relying on pure intellect when you're in that darkness. So now you're relying on your higher senses, because these 2 physical eyes, which create that blindness and chaos, are not being utilized. So that light that shineth in the darkness is that intellect. That's the real breakdown, or the occult breakdown, of that quote in the book of John. Now, again, they took a lot of these rituals, and they took a lot of these concepts that predated the Bible, and they transitioned it over into little literal stories and placed their characters smack in the middle of it. And the Christian interpretation of that light that shineth in the darkness is their Jesus. Now, this is what I'm trying to say, is where a lot of that went wrong, is because they made a lot of it literal, and it becomes confusing to the point today to somebody or to the ignorant person. It's hard to explain to them anything because they can't think, beyond their religious theology. Okay, so I hope that clarifies that about the spookiness on black candles. Unfortunately, people are very, very spooked out about that. Then the last part, therefore, since it does not exert any interfering energies of its own, it is a fine choice for meditation purposes, very powerful, and psychic development. Many like to burn a black candle when they are requesting something of a miraculous nature. That is a joyous outcome to a grim or impossible situation. There is hardly a better choice or suitable substitute in banishing rituals of the most serious types. And that's exactly, that last portion is one of the main reasons why I continuously keep a black candle burning on my altar when I'm working spiritual magic or creating my circle and banishing my sacred space and locking the energy in my circle. I always have that black candle at work, that color that it emits, the frequencies and the vibration that it emits, working with it. And then getting into a whole nother science is, especially when you burn glass candles, being able to read those candles. Because you'll find out there's a science behind when those candles burn down. Sometimes the glass, it burns down very cleanly, leaves no residue. Sometimes they'll burn down with a very thick blackness or heavy residue, or a foggy or a very murky colored glass, which would determine that there was a lot of negativity being burned away. And if you were doing that, say, for physical health, that would be confirming you definitely had some physical ailments or sicknesses that were being cleansed. If you got that dark murky color on per se, a 7-day glass candle, it would, in reference to a request for something, it would be showing you that there's a lot of spiritual energy blocking it right now, and right now wouldn't be the correct time to do it. Okay, so these are some key factors to take into consideration. So let's go back into the purpose now. Let's talk a little bit about the purpose and break some of the myths for a few minutes on what this is really all about. Okay, so it says, now the purpose of magic as a religion is to integrate conflicting aspects of the human psyche with each other, and the whole with the cosmic psyche, and as a craft. I apologize for the yawning. A little tired. Been a long day, but as I say, still my job to do this here. As the craft to develop the power and self-knowledge of the individual psyche. Okay, or in a group, the cooperating group of individual psyches, so that it can achieve results which are beyond the scope of an undeveloped, unself-aware psyche, much as an athlete develops and learns about his muscular power and control to achieve feats impossible for the non-athlete. So what you're doing is, when you're working this spiritual magic, you're tapping in to self-knowledge and the psyche. And one thing I'm telling you, man, one thing that is beautiful about being a mystic, being a magician, being an alchemist, one is free from bondage on all levels. One is not confined to rules and regulations and laws and religious dogmas, and one is not controlled by anything. One does not come up under anything. You're tapping into the self-knowledge of the psyche. As I said before, you are the sole governor of your spirituality. You are the God or the deity that is manifesting its reality every day, every single day you live. You are shaping your destiny. You are shaping your reality. You are creating your universe. That's the beauty of this. And the reason why most people who don't or cannot relate to these higher states of consciousness, and they have to stay stuck in the physicality of information, is because they fear, either consciously or subconsciously, tapping in to that dark, chaotic energy that's lurking there in the subconscious mind. They don't want to be practitioners, so they find everything and anything they think they can find wrong about it, and try to condemn it. Because like I said, I'm sick and tired. When I say sick and tired, of just listening to people babble on about how great we were back in the day, how great we were, our ancient Egyptian ancestors, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, that shit is all relevant in 2016. But when we just sit there and constantly ramble on about the greatness of our ancestors, well, what were the exact practices some of our ancestors practiced? And you'll find that the magicians, even back in ancient Egypt, that were tapping into the higher sciences, were using those higher sciences that they put in practice to master themselves, and they were able to use that information also to keep such a high-tech society and culture that was so high-tech, so powerful, so influential, that it still influences the world today, and people are still fascinated by it, and still are fascinated by certain aspects of it that they can't explain. So this is what this is really all about. But most people that fear it write it off, and they don't want nothing to do with it. And like I said, I could sit here and stroke your ego for hours and sit here and give you a whole historical lecture on Egypt and Africa and the Orisi and Nigeria, and get into a whole bunch of scientific information and just regurgitate a whole bunch of shit that 90% of it, other than just studying it and hearing it, you're not going to be able to utilize it to do shit anyway. So it's irrelevant at the end of the day. You're going to find that out, as opposed to giving you information that you can put into practice to master self, and also to send out that energy into the universe that's going to counterbalance and kind of counter, attack those things that are kind of off the wall, that are out of whack. These same sciences, whether you want to accept it or not, and you'll find it out as you go down the road later. The powers that be use these sciences and have been using these sciences for many years. Okay, even when you go back to during the time of Catholicism, and let me show you the game. Okay. Even when you go back, and I'm going to take this out of a book. This is important for people to understand. Okay, I'm going to grab something real quick. Even when you go back into Catholicism, which is the father of all Christianity, okay, and all Christianity has emerged out of that, okay? They were always practicing magic, even those that claim to be against it. Even those, during those times of the crusade, that were attacking people that practiced spiritual magic. You had, even during the time of the church, Pope Gregory was a known practitioner of what we call magic. And you have to always remember this: when the church put its doctrine together, the Roman Catholic Church, they had to incorporate a doctrine that kept some of the pagan beliefs, okay, or part of the culture that predated religion, and they had to incorporate it with their modern day religious beliefs. So that's why they came up with the Roman Catholic Church, which was a combination of Roman myths and rituals combined with Christian myths and rituals. Therefore, we had the formation of the Roman Catholic Church. But a lot of those individuals that came up under that system were practicing spiritual magic. And then you had later on during the time of the kings in England and King James, who is responsible for putting together one of the number one, I should say, most used translation of the Bible worldwide, the King James Version of the Bible. And he inserted in there in the Old Testament, I can't recall offhand what book, but it's in there, you can Google it, in Exodus, I believe it is, there is a quote that says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." And that quote alone was used and utilized for during the time of the Salem witch hunts, to use that basis and to use the Bible and religion as a basis to go on a witch hunt and kill all those that practice what they call black magic. So there's a deeper science to that. You understand? So the connection there, when you put them both together, you'll see that this is where most people modern day get spooked out, because there's been certain things that were inserted in the Bible by the Bible translators intentionally to attack some of these spiritual practices. But then what I find very unique, which is funny as shit to me, which nobody really talks about, when you go into the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, the book of Leviticus, it talks about the priest of Urim and Thummim, and how they used systems of divination, various systems of divination, to communicate so-called with God or the Creator. They used the stones or the runes. It's right there in your Torah or / Bible, and they would read runes and stones as a form of divination, which was supposed to represent the mouthpiece of God when they were counseling individuals that were part of the 12 tribes of Israel. It was a form of spiritual magic. So the chaos and the confusion comes in. On one aspect, the Bible is condemning it. On the other aspect, it's promoting it. And then you had the translators of these books that would pick pieces of verses that they so-called claimed or were utilizing to condemn anybody that was a practicing magician. So when one understands those precepts and one understands those concepts of, dispelling the myths that religion has stamped on spiritual magic, then one has a broader now understanding of what it's really all about, and it removes the fear. And fear only, connects you to another fucked up aspect called ignorance. And most people are ignorant because it's their fears that fuel that ignorance. Bottom line, period. Okay? So I think what I want to do, we'll stop there. Keep this one at that point, so you can kind of meditate and fluctuate on those concepts. So again, what I want to focus on, in the next several weeks, is again practical applications that you can apply. Candle magic, breaking down some of these systems so that you can start applying them and using them, and not just getting a historical lecture that's not going to do you shit, and most of that shit you can find out on your own, because I'm not really, like I say, I'm not going to be one of those dudes that's going to sit here and stroke your ego and just tell you how great you were back in Egypt and blah, 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 and what the devil did to you, and get you all riled up and mad, and then kind of leave you just fucking hanging, because that's what most of these so-called groups and organizations do. It's they pump your emotions up, and that's it. So we got to stop talking about what the problem is, and we got to start becoming the solution to the problem. And the only way we can become a solution to these problems is by tapping into the higher sciences of our spiritual ancestors. It is the oldest way. There's nothing on this planet that predates that methodology. You'll find out in all ancient cultures, it's what we did on a regular basis. You'll find out all of these cultures predate religion by thousands to millions of years. Okay, that's just a fact. Now, you don't have to accept it. Personally, I couldn't give two shits if you did or you didn't. That's irrelevant to me, because this is not about what you like and what you don't like, and I've said that before several times. Because if it was about what you liked and you didn't like, then we'd be living in a real strong state of chaos. There's a law and order to everything in the universe. Everything has its reasoning behind it. And when you understand how that system works, you're able to move with it as opposed to against it. So there's established order of things that one has to work in conjunction with to work true magic. And a true individual that studies knows that. So we'll get into a little bit more of that on our next show. So again, also as a reminder, don't forget to tune into our radio show every Thursday night, Awakening the Universal Minds, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TalkShoe.com. You can find a link right here on YouTube, on this YouTube page, and on my mother Nubia Inc. Google Plus page. All the shows are archived. Okay. And we will be having a upcoming class, an event. Should be the second or the third week in February on a Saturday. I should have that date by next week's class. So we'll be having a nice event out there in Miami Gardens, as usual, at Sophia's Garden of Ma'at. Admission is free. Just come out, support the vendors. I'll be out there with a shitload of books and products in reference to all the things that we discuss here. So if you're able to make that event, definitely would like to see those people out there. Other than that, that's all I got for you this week. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate all the positive emails and the supporters that follow the show weekly. And I get a lot of emails, and which to me is the greatest thing to see and feel is people that simply say they're learning so much from watching the videos. I get emails that, I've been watching the channel since you put it up, and I've been watching for about a year, and it's made such a dramatic change and impact in my life because I've taken some of the information, I've applied it, etc. I mean, I can maybe one day bring and read some of those emails briefly, but that's the greatest result that can manifest, because that's the purpose of doing this show. That's the purpose of doing the radio show. That's the purpose of reaching out and dialoguing with people. And as long as people continue to say that it's helped them change, it's made them better, you know what I'm saying? That is a beautiful thing to me, and that's why I do what I do for over the last 20-something years. And for those that know me, I'm not into this bullshit for money. Everybody's got their own hustle, take my spiritual class and all that other bullshit. And don't get me wrong, I offer products and services, for fees and money, but I don't push it to the point whereas if it's the only thing I do. I do believe people should be compensated for their time, but I don't believe people should come up with these gimmicks as if they can't take it to the next level if they don't take somebody's course or class. So by all means, I do think lecturers and teachers and people that devote their time and travel all over the world, because I travel all over too, should be just compensated for their time in a reasonable manner. Not to the point where they should be taking, advantage of people. But unfortunately, you got that also in the conscious community, just like you got it in the church, unfortunately. And I think that's just a fact that's everywhere. It doesn't matter. You always got your con artists and your people that try to take advantage of other people. People that know me for a long time know I've never been about that. And I'm fair and to the best of my ability, and we're all human, we make mistakes. I'm fair to the best of my ability in that department. So again, if you're able to come out to the event, and I've been doing classes for over 20-something years, I don't charge for any of those classes. There's no fee to get in. Again, we just ask you come in, buy some books, support, and again, just be, courteous of people's times, and the time that they put in. That's it. If you do that, everything else takes care of itself. So if you're able to come to that event, when we give you that date on the next one, we'll put that out there. It'd be good to see some people out there that might be able to attend that event. So other than that, we'll continue our discussion in our class next week. Hotep and peace, and we will see you on the next one.